You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Okay, Cantina Club. Hello, God bless you all. I'm here in Nashville at the Comic-Con convention, having a very nice time and talking to your representatives here. So good luck to you all. Have a wonderful life. God bless you.
If you want a drink, well, you come right on in. Just watch your step, cuz.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Club. This time we're going to talk about the best things we like about the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and we'll get to it right after this.
We all know around here, Solo always does shots first. Singing Yo No, raise your glass, and sing Yo No. Sing it with me, Yo No. At the Cantina Club. Scum and villainy, it's a wretched hive. But life ain't always teddy bears.
All right, so we are back, and we're going to discuss on this episode all of our favorite moments of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, things we liked about it, keeping it positive. Which, because of that, Greedo will not be talking this episode.
I can't bring up Lasergate.
No.
What if I actually liked it?
Only if you loved it. But before we get into that, we're gonna do. We haven't done this in a while. We're gonna do our Cloud City and Rancor Pit, where we talk about some show that we're watching, whether it's current, old, whatever, and just either recommend it or not recommend it. So, who would like to go first this week?
I'm
You
gonna
have one
let
done
someone else go.
I'll go- I'll go.
first. I want mine
Okay.
to go last.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Well, then,
Greedo, go ahead and take.
you are
take
the
it away.
boss. There's a lot of things that have been out that I could talk about, like The Boys and The Old Man, and some things that are people probably already know about. But they did release recently season 2 of Undone,
Mhm.
which is an animated series on Amazon Prime, I believe, or is it on Hulu? I think it's on Amazon Prime. And I believe I recommended this season 1 a couple years ago or something,
Oh, okay.
a year ago, I'm not sure.
Mhm.
But if I didn't, season 1 is fantastic, and it has, if you're a fan of Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, it's got Bob Odenkirk in it, and he's really, really good. He's not the main character. Don't go watch it just for him, but he's a really compelling character in it. The first season's fantastic. I haven't watched all of the second season. I've just watched a couple of the episodes, and it's kind of a carbon freeze right now, as far as I don't know whether I'd recommend the second season as highly as the first. But if you haven't checked it out and you do like the first, the second seems like kind of more of the same, so you're probably going to be into it. And it's animated in a very different style, very cleverly written, has a lot of cool actors in it, and character interactions, and an interesting story and take on kind of the meaning of reality and life and things like that. So Undone I believe it's on Amazon.
Amazon.
Check
Okay.
me if I'm wrong.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't recall. I don't think you've recommended it because I don't recall hearing of that show before. Excellent. Okay. All right. Well, I'll go next. I'm going to recommend, it's a Cloud City for me as well. And I'm going to recommend Yellowstone. Just got through watching it. I hadn't watched it from the beginning. I went back and binged it over the last couple of months. They've got 4 seasons out so far. Season 5 comes up this coming November. But it's a really good show. It's for those of you who aren't familiar with it, which is not very many people, it's actually kind of a modern day Western. It's basically the story of John Dutton, played by Kevin Costner, and his several generations of this Dutton Ranch up in Montana, and it's basically
Which is the most dangerous place on earth, by the way.
Right. It's but it's interesting. It's modern day, of course. It takes place, current times, but has a lot of Western feel to it and aspects of it. And it's just really interesting. I really got into it, and the characters are engaging, the writing's done really well. So I enjoy that show a lot. So I would recommend it, and it's on Peacock. That's the platform it's on.
Isn't there a different, like a Yellowstone 1880s
It's
or something too?
1883. Yeah, I watched that as well. Yeah.
Does that have
And
Tom Hanks in it, or?
he's in
Oh,
it for a couple of cameos. Yeah, he's actually
Okay.
one. He's actually just in one cameo. Yeah.
all right.
Um,
Since I never know if I'll pass this way again, I gotta throw Yellowstone 1883 or whatever into the Rancor pit. I have to.
Oh,
I tried watching this show,
mhm.
and it is one of the worst things I've ever seen. It is so bad. It is so bad, and it would
no.
choke the Rancor on both ends. I mean, he would just writhe in agony and die over a few days. It's like just like pouring antifreeze down the Rancor's gullet. But no, this is just my opinion. I'm sure there's things to like about it. That it looks like the Old West and everything. I mean, they did a decent budget. But boy, oh my God, it's everything that I didn't like about Yellowstone distilled in an inescapable scenario. We're just stuck with these people on the prairie trail, and you can't escape, and you have to watch every hangnail, painful hangnail they have, in just gory detail. And it's Taylor Swift overdubbing it with her just horrible teen poetry or whatever every episode. You can't. Every time you think it's over, no, she has more to say. And oh my God, it's so bad. But that's just my opinion. But I can't let that pass. Like, Yellowstone was a whole other thing. That show was
Yeah. And
Rancor worthy. Okay,
all right, what you got, Gundark?
let's hope I vented all my negativity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yay! I've got something that escaped the Rancor pit to ascend to Cloud City status.
Really?
And although
This is rare.
Probably many or maybe even most people that watch this podcast have seen this and know of it, there are some out there that do not. I'm mentioning this because we're going to be talking about the Obi-Wan series, and this is just kind of a wonderful lead into the Obi-Wan series. If you've never seen it, if you're a Star Wars fan and you've never heard of it, you need to watch Backstroke of the West. I've become obsessed with this now recently. I went and watched the entire thing on YouTube. If you don't, and the reason I'm mentioning this is I have a friend who's a really big Star Wars fan who had never heard of it. And we were talking about the Obi-Wan series. She was really enjoying it. And she said, I've got to go back and watch the prequels. And I'm like, no, wait a second. Don't save yourself some tears. Go and watch Backstroke of the West instead. That will be fine for you. And
Right.
if you haven't heard of this, it's a Chinese bootleg DVD of Revenge of the Sith. And American, as far as the story of it that I understand from looking it up on the internet, is American was living in China and found a bootleg DVD there of Revenge of the Sith that a Chinese company had also added English subtitles to that were poorly translated from Chinese.
Yeah.
And
To say the
so,
least.
it
Yeah,
has
just put it mildly.
some incredible dialogue in the English subtitles. And so some enterprising American got a hold of that, got together a group of actors to imitate the voices of the original actors from Revenge of the Sith, and did an entire English dub of the film with the Chinese to English subtitles as the dialogue. And it's a masterpiece. I mean, I can just see it. I went and watched the entire thing. You can just watch highlight reels. They're like 2-minute highlight reels if
Yeah.
you've never seen it before. But I sat down and watched the whole thing, and I could not look away. It was so funny and
Like
so
a car
much
crash.
fun. Oh, it was, and
Would the prequels even be remembered if it wasn't for the internet?
yes. See, that's why we have such affection. Is things like Backstroke of the West, that somehow Revenge of the Sith translated. What was it? Star Wars: The Third Rises. Backstroke of the West is the title.
Mhm.
Star Wars.
Backstroke of the West.
Star War. And
Almost as
Obi-
good as an actual Lucas title.
I gotta give, since we're going to talk about Obi-Wan, I gotta give kudos to whoever the hell the voice actor was who voiced Obi-Wan in this dub. He's just awesome. He has some of the most incredible dialogue, makes absolutely no sense, and he really sells it. And the connection between him and Anakin, and it was wonderful. I can't believe I'm saying this about Backstroke of the West. There was like real affection between these characters.
A la Gold.
The guy, yeah, a la Gold. Anakin Skywalker becomes a la Gold. Obi-Wan Kenobi is Ratio Tile, is his name. However that happened, and they are they are a la Gold and Ratio Tile are the hopeless situation warriors. And
Right.
Hopeless situation
the hopeless
warriors.
situation parliament, and they're working against the Senate and the Speaker and D, who I guess is Count Dooku. And so
who are the Presbyterians? Is that all
the
Force users?
Presbyterians are also the Jedi. The Jedi are referred to as hopeless situation warriors and Presbyterians.
Right.
And the Jedi Council is the Presbyterian Church.
The Presbyterian
So
Church. I love that.
Gold has to make a big choice as to whether to go with the Speaker and D, who are bad people, according to Ratio Tile, or to stick with the hopeless situation parliament, or the what else did we say, the hopeless situation parliament is the Jedi Council. It is a classic. So you just got to go back and enjoy watching the whole thing. And there is now an HD version of the movie that has this dub on it, if you want to see it in all its HD beautiful glory at the fight sequences and everything. Yeah, this I can see now why Carillion Trader is like making this maybe the third greatest Star Wars movie ever made. Backstroke of the West.
I will never live that down.
You need some of the prequels to kind of whet your taste for Obi-Wan series, go watch that.
There you go. And it's on YouTube?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe we can link it in the podcast, the HD version.
Yeah.
And what was the wish power are together with you, my friend. The wish power are together with you.
Wish power
are together with you. Help me, Ratio Tile. My only hope.
I love this scene, right? Where Anakin in the movie says, "You know the Force," so the Chancellor says, he's like, "You are also Presbyterian." I am also Presbyterian.
I am also Presbyterian. I'll go.
Okay. All right. So let's get into, on that note, let's get into our topic. We're going to discuss the Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus series that just finished airing recently. We're just going to discuss some of our favorite moments and the things that we really liked about it. Take about 30 minutes or so to kind of just go over that and see what we thought about it. All right. Who would like to start?
I'll start.
Okay, Gundark, what you got?
I was really excited about this series, largely because of Ewan McGregor. I wanted to see him as Obi-Wan again, and I was not disappointed in his performance. It just gained so much depth and maturity from his performance in the prequels. He was outstanding throughout. Some of us may not have agreed with the way the character was interpreted, but I don't think that you can cast stones against the quality of his performance in the character. Everything they gave him, he did the most possible with it, and he was just really impressive. So Ewan McGregor, yay!
Yeah, I agree. I would say that regardless of what you think about the series as a whole, or the writing, or any negative things that we have said about it in the past, you can't take away from Ewan's performance. And it was one of the main things I was looking forward to at the beginning of the show anyway, was just seeing him reprise the role as Obi-Wan. And I thought he just, again, knocked it out of the park. Thought he did a great job. Just phenomenal actor. And he just brought that certain sensibility that he brings to the character again. And it was, I love seeing when an actor can have so many years between portraying a character and then just kind of, morph themselves right back into that character. I really enjoyed his performance. Yeah, I agree with that.
I would agree with that also. And I would also say that over the years, Ewan McGregor has kind of given off a vibe that he wanted to move on past Star Wars, and that that it wasn't his favorite thing to talk about or to meet the fans and all this stuff in a way. I mean, it just depends, I guess, how you look at it. But so it was nice to see him. Not just the performance was great, but I felt like he gave 100%. You know, like in no way did he mail it in, or did he do it for the paycheck, or did he do it for the, you know, to have something to do in between movies or whatever. He felt fully committed to me. So that's the linchpin of the whole series. It's his character, and if he's not fully committed, I don't think it works at all.
Yeah.
And the fact that, regardless, like Gundark said, regardless how you feel about the character or anything else, when the actor's fully committed, you have something to watch, you know, and something to be invested in, and they're giving you something. They're giving you 100% of something, and so that was what I found most compelling about him and his performance, was the way he embraced fully the opportunity.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't just a paycheck for this guy. He, you know, in the couple of years leading up to this, you know, he's done interviews where he had come out saying that he wanted to reprise the role. You know, just going out of his way to say, I would love to reprise that character in a new vehicle, and they, you know, ultimately made it happen. And I think it showed in his performance that he was not just mailing it in. He was fully engaged in this. Absolutely. All right. What's the next point?
And if we're sticking with actors, I want to mention Vivian Lyra Blair, the actress who plays Princess Leia. Oh, that was a home run for me.
Absolutely.
It was one of those moments too that was such a surprise, that when we were talking about the Book of Boba Fett, and Greedo said that he really enjoyed it, the surprises, the left turns that the series would give us. That was something for me from the beginning, made the first episode stand out to me, is I was expecting, if we were going to get one of the Skywalker children, that the focus would be on Luke, since it was the Obi-Wan series and Obi-Wan was tasked with watching over Luke. And I was so surprised to see Princess Leia not just making a cameo, but to be a central character in the series and to have a wonderful chemistry with Obi-Wan. And the little actress they chose was just perfectly cast. Her performance was outstanding. And to me, that's really taking chances too, is you're putting so much of the success of your series on the performance of a child actor, you know, and they were willing to do that and willing to run with that, and found the right girl to do it. And I mean, you think about casting someone to play Princess Leia, an iconic role, you know, it's like, and she was well worthy of it. She did such a wonderful job.
Like you said, not only picking someone to fill the shoes of this iconic character, but they're 10 years old.
Yes.
You know, you're not even asking an adult to do this. You're asking a 10-year-old child to do this. And you're right. She completely took care of business. I mean, I was fully engaged every time she was on screen. I wasn't taken out of it. You know, that's another one of those moments, kind of like when we discussed our favorite moments of Book of Boba Fett, and we were talking about the deep fake of Luke and all that kind of stuff. That's something that if it goes wrong, the whole series is ruined. The same thing applies with this, I think. You know, if you miscast this character, the whole show is just useless, you know, because you're not going to be engaged. But yeah, the way she emoted, the facial expressions, her delivery of the lines, the connection she had seemingly with Ewan, I thought it all worked really, really well. So brilliant job of casting on that. Absolutely.
And I also appreciated getting to see more of her backstory. You know, I had wanted that for so long. And even when I think there's a moment in the series, it's either the first or second episode, when Bail Organa comes to visit Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan's refused to help him find Leia when she's been kidnapped. And he says, why are you concerned just with the boy? She's just as important as Luke. And I remember I was watching this with my husband, I just shouted out, "Finally, thank you, Bail Organa." Somebody said that, you know. So like because I've so long wanted a little bit more attention to Princess Leia, and I had wanted her to go the Jedi route and all of those kinds of things, but I was glad just to get a little bit more background on her with somebody who was worthy of playing her and gave a really good performance. And I'd been hoping for a Princess Leia television series. And this kind of gave me a little bit of a taste of that. That was very enjoyable to me. So finally get some attention for her character was a lot of fun just for me personally, because I've been waiting for that for a long time.
Absolutely.
Man, I don't want to. There's no such thing as rain on Tatooine, so I can't rain on your Tatooine parade. But I just wanted to say that, in all fairness, Princess Leia was always an important character,
Of
and
course, of course.
always, it's easy to say Luke was the main character, but it was an ensemble cast, and everybody had their moments. Yeah, it was the 70s and 80s, and she wasn't put in the forefront as much as
Yeah.
possibly she should have been. But in the end, her character was every bit as important as any other character. The actions that she did and following her every step of the way wasn't as important in Return of
Yeah.
the Jedi, for instance.
I
But
guess
her
that's what I'm
character
saying. I
was
wanted
every
more
bit
of
as
a
important.
story
And
connected to her.
if we'd had a fourth movie, it probably would have been all about
Yeah.
her, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
I wanted more of a story connected to her, and I'm glad I finally got that with that character. And like you say, that she was always an important character, and you say how the movies are dated in terms of the 70s and 80s, and also the heroic legends that the original Star Wars are inspired by. All heroic mythology tended to be focused more on male characters as the active heroes, and the princesses were the objects of their quests or whatever. They save the princess and are rewarded with marriage to the princess at the end. Star Wars was already subverting that from the very beginning, with Princess Leia being, what was it, Carrie Fisher called her a distressing damsel rather than a damsel in distress. She was the one who was speaking out, who was taking control, from the very beginning. And I really love seeing that aspect enhanced in the young Leia character, where you see where all that fieriness and then also her diplomacy is coming from. If you think about the way that the character was written in the Obi-Wan show and the way it was performed by this actress, it was kind of a combination of the two sides of that character. She sometimes, when you see her in Star Wars and she's mouthing off at people and just taking control, railroading over things that are wrong and saying them right, you're wondering, well, how can she step back and be a diplomat? But it seemed like this little character in this series kind of walked that fine line between those two aspects of her character, the fieriness, the passion that could burst out at any second, as somebody who was a fool, and just take them down a peg or two.
Yeah, I just saw it. She doesn't suffer fools gladly.
No. And versus stepping back and knowing when to say what and, and what to participate in. So it was I just thought it really captured what seemed to me was a convincing young Leia and where the adult Leia would have come from. So I thought they did a really good job with that, and the actress did a fine performance to kind of tread that line between those two parts of the character.
The only thing I want to add to that is that the actress wasn't. She was 8 or 9 when they filmed it, so she wasn't even 10
she was
yet.
9.
Yeah,
and she's not acting with other kids. There is some scenes where she's with other kids, but the vast majority of her screen time is not opposite other kids or other inexperienced. She's up against very experienced actors and holds her own very, very well.
That says a lot.
Yeah, any shortcomings that the character had, I think, was due to other elements, not due to the actress at all. And I will also say, this has nothing to do with anything, but when I see these things these days, I hope the parents and the people involved protect that kid, because Hollywood and all that and success at such a young age is a hard thing to deal with. And we've seen, you would have thought actors like Jake Lloyd would have had some kind of insulation being involved in a worldwide
phenomenon.
Phenomenon of Star Wars, and yet he had a terrible time after playing Anakin. So at school and everything like that. So prayers for this kid that she's well looked after and protected by people, because and is somehow Carrie is a great example of somebody who was jaded before her time. And that's part of her charm and everything. And that's part of we always get people like that that their minds are brilliant and they're formed that way, partly because of stuff that would traumatize most of us, but that doesn't mean that we should expect this child to be an adult, because she's not.
Right. Right.
So anyway,
Exactly.
but I would just point out most of her work was against very experienced actors, and there wasn't really anything that stood out as she just did a good job, very good job, and very, very good casting.
And I
That's all I
thought it
wanted to
was a
add to that.
wonderful tribute to the character. And for me, the highlight was at the very end of the series, that last episode when Obi-Wan and Leia said goodbye to each other. And she had, well, I had to jump back earlier to, in the first or second episode, they had a conversation aboard a transport where she asked Obi-Wan if he was her real father. And that was one of my favorite moments in the series. It was just a jaw-dropping moment where he said he wished he had been, and then he told her about his own family background, and the way Ewan McGregor sold it, where you felt the regret of him being separated from his family and not having those kind of connections, and the memories of his own mother, and the knowledge that he has a brother out there maybe. All of that was just new material that was astounding, and it enhanced the emotional connection between him and the Leia character. And I was just shocked that they had the Leia character just come out forthright, ask him that, are you my father?
Can I say something here? Or go ahead.
Yeah.
You weren't finished. Go ahead.
Well, to cap that off, you have the scene at the end where he decides he's going to tell her what he can about her parents. I'm not your father, but I knew your parents. They were exceptional people. They created an exceptional daughter. And you have all of the kindness and love of your mother. You have the passion, the fierceness of your father. With the Princess Leia theme swelling in the background, John Williams music coming in there. It was such a beautifully written, it was a beautifully written speech for Ewan McGregor, beautifully delivered by him, and the little actress, it seemed to mean so much to her, Princess Leia, that it was a scene that just makes me tear up every time I watch it. What a tribute to Carrie Fisher's Leia too, and to her performance. It was kind of like a little encapsulated description of everything that was glorious about her performance.
And I thought it was a great moment too, in that it showed us that the past was over. In Obi-Wan's mind, Anakin is dead, and the Anakin worth remembering was his friend and his student. And the only part of Anakin worth passing on is the part he's talking about. And he's looking firmly at the future now, which is one of the things I really loved about the ending of the series, is the optimism involved. In that there's a lot of criticism I've read of different things about the end of the show, but I felt like it was necessary for Obi-Wan to feel free of a lot of the burdens of the past, and to realize that it's no longer his fight to directly solve, like he can't do it by himself. And they've adopted this strategy of they're putting their faith in the future. And you know what? The future is worth putting your faith in, and especially when it comes from a past of people like that. And if you can pass on that heritage and he already knows this girl's in good hands and she's learning all the right things. And he can see those qualities because of her parents, bringing it, her current parents are bringing it out of her. To me, it was about faith in the future, and that we're here now. There's no bringing Anakin back. Padme's gone. That story's over, and we're having some faith in the future now. And that was optimism is something that's really needed in Star Wars, and really needed in the world. And I didn't feel like it was false. It didn't ring false to me. It's based on real values that Star Wars is based in, and how the Obi-Wan that I see in A New Hope would feel about the situation, so probably at that point in his life. So anyway, and I wanted to say also, I had on my list the slower scenes between Leia and Obi-Wan. Which pretty much, I'm not going to go into the faster scenes, but the slower scenes were all fantastic, and it made the show worth watching to me, and were highlights. And that doesn't just happen. So whatever they found there, and where they realized they could do that, you can't always pull that off. You can't write a slow scene and with a child, and with without either. There's so many things that could happen there where there's no balance, but they did a really good job of achieving balance in those scenes to where we had two characters that were equals despite their tremendous differences in age and powers and everything else. And in those slower moments, it really came through, and those were some of my favorite moments on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So switching to another character, we have to bring up Vader, which was incredible. I just love seeing Vader on the bridge of a Star Destroyer. It's just so Star Wars to me. I've mentioned that before when we were covering the episodes, but Hayden's performance in every aspect, even though he got limited screen time, a lot in the suit, but limited, without what he did in that final duel in the final episode was just incredible. I just love the scene when we got the Rebels Ahsoka moment, basically, of busting his helmet open and seeing him, and just the way he delivered his dialogue, and the facial expressions and the smirk he said when he admitted that he was the one that killed Anakin, and all that was just
Stop stealing my stuff.
really, really good. Yeah.
You know what I was going to talk about. Now I have nothing.
Sorry,
That's
reading
it.
What
your
about
That was my whole page. That was my whole page.
what about the work they did with James Earl Jones' voice? I was
Yeah.
really impressed by that too. I mean, whatever they did, does anybody know? I haven't really
how they
Yeah.
molded the
that.
voices.
Yeah, no, how they.
I'm sure they'll go into it, but I've heard that in the credits, it says that they used a process like they used on Luke's voice in The Mandalorian. It's
Oh,
that
okay.
computer. They created a younger James Earl Jones and admittedly, James Earl Jones has a ton of voice material out there.
Oh, sure.
That you can plug in and let it emulate. And I think the main thing that's remarkable about that is that nothing clashed as sounding too fake.
No,
Right.
no.
A voice that's
It
already,
all was convincing.
it's already artifice anyway, but
Mhm.
James Earl Jones brings that humanity to it. If anything, you could say it was lacking some of that humanity, but they had Hayden there to double some of the lines and to bring that humanity side of it back to it, through Hayden. So the parts really, there wasn't any truly remarkable, not much remarkable dialogue for the James Earl Jones voice to handle with a lot of nuance or whatever.
Yeah,
Mhm.
They pretty much had his attitude nailed of what he would be during that time period.
yeah.
And it was nice to hear him, not sounding, no offense or anything, but he's elderly, and
Yeah.
like in
His
Rogue One,
voice
he
wouldn't be
sounds
as
elderly.
strong now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I missed the kind of epic roar edge he
Yeah.
had to it, and the calm and class and everything, the clarity he had in Star Wars.
Yeah.
You go back and watch Star Wars, the beginning of that movie, he's one angry dude.
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah, if you think,
Tear the shit
contrast
apart.
that to like his performance in Empire,
Yeah.
or even Return of the
no.
Jedi. It's like,
Yeah.
Star Wars starts and he's just like yelling everything. He's just
No,
angry.
he's kicking. It's like he's arriving on the scene and he's going to kick things into shape.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do that later on because everybody
Right.
knows not to get on his bad side. But
Mhm.
but yeah, I liked that callback to the younger Vader. And like I said, the most remarkable thing is that none of it stands out as where you call it out. In fact, I was reading comments as the show was going on, and most people didn't even know it wasn't him. They just
Yeah.
Mhm.
they just assumed. But at 90 whatever years old, I
No,
don't
his
think
voice
he's
can't
currently in
sound that
shape where he could do
crisp,
all that dialogue they had Vader doing. Yeah, it just yeah, that was brilliantly done. Good point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before
very,
we
very
go
good.
back to like Vader and the final fight and all of that, I want to mention some other smaller bits
Mhm.
that stood out to me. I really liked Owen Mars in this series.
Yeah.
Who's the actor who
Joel
played him?
Edgerton.
Okay, he returns from the prequels, right?
Yes.
And
He was really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a question. Did he have a Gandalf nose in this show, or was that actually his actual nose? 'Cause-
What?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
well, you know how Ian McKellen, they enhanced his nose for Gandalf. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
He had a prosthetic
Why
added
do you
to his
think-
nose. Well, I just feel like he looks different. Like they're trying to morph him into the Owen,
The
in
older Owen that we know.
yeah,
from-
older Owen, and that does
Yeah.
not look like his nose from Joel
I don't
Edgerton's nose.
know.
Okay,
I
I
don't
didn't
think
notice.
so.
I'll have to go back and look.
No, I don't.
You guys think I'm crazy, but maybe I am.
I've just never heard
Maybe
of
there's
that.
two
No.
separate things. Maybe I am crazy whether or not he has a prosthetic nose. Hashtag Owen's prosthetic nose.
Anyway, his performance was wonderful, and I liked how it. I think when we were watching this, doing our reaction video, Greedo mentioned this, that it enhanced Owen's character, where he wasn't just like, he's the gruff and grim old mean uncle or whatever in New
Yeah.
Hope. Yeah, he's all mean, and in the radio show adaptation of that, I want a farmhand. He's yelling at Luke, it's like that's all you get.
I know the
is
radio show version of Owen sticks with me just as much as the screen.
Yeah.
Right.
I just blend them together. I just seem like that's the same dude.
He's just like the angry old uncle who
Mhm.
who just doesn't want to be saddled with all of this stuff. And to see him actually go through the process of that he really loves Luke and he wants to defend him. And part of that anger, comes from the love for Luke and wanting to protect this child. And seeing that the Jedi crap, I just seeing more of this, I just think like I feel sorry for the ordinary people like the Lars family and Han Solo who get caught up in all the Jedi stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
Han Solo, you're gonna marry someone with force sensitive powers and you're gonna have force sensitive babies,
Right.
think twice maybe, Han Solo,
Yeah.
a poor Owen Lars, poor Aunt Beru, they worked really hard and loved Luke, and then they end up as crispy critters or whatever in
That's the
New
weirdest
Hope.
part
So,
is in this series and everything, you see how determined they are and what they have a lot to give and everything, and they're willing to fight their pioneer spirit or whatever, and just to realize that one day they didn't know it was their last day.
yeah.
There was no warning. There was no warning shot in Star Wars. The
Mm-mm.
Stormtroopers just showed up and did them in. It
Yep.
was too late. By the time they showed up, they had no chance, and so they were taken by surprise. And that's really, they deserved better after seeing the show. And I'm right with you, Owen especially. I gained a whole new respect for him,
Mhm.
and
I did
very
too.
very wise to let this guy play Owen the way they did. He
Yeah.
even deserved more screen time because he just knocked it out of the park, in my opinion. He's almost my favorite thing about the show, which sounds crazy to say. I liked him better than Leia and all that, but I really, really, really enjoyed his character. And never been a big fan of Owen Lars,
No.
the Lars stuff.
I need a farmhand.
Yeah. So, and I always assume you assume a lot from watching Star Wars. You assume these roles between Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and you can just imagine what she's had to put up with from this guy all the years. It kind of flips that a little bit. It shows how strong she is and how they were a team. And she brought out a lot in him, and he respected her, and vice versa. But yeah, I thought those two, not to leave her out, she did a great job as well. The main thing was knowing that. And is it okay? You want to say anything about them, Carillion?
It's kind of echoing what you're saying, but I
want to lead it into something else.
It really rounded out that character a lot more, gave more depth to the Lars character. That, like you said, he's Owen Lars. You don't really think that about that character that much within the context of Star Wars. But yeah, I just thought that Joel Edgerton brought just a depth to it, and the way we see his, like Gundark said, his relationship to Luke, as though he's more than just this grumpy, frustrated farmer who's just saddled with this kid, and unhappy all the time. So I really enjoyed that. That's one of the best things about the show, I thought.
No, he stood toe to toe with Obi-Wan and with the Inquisitors, and whether he was resourceful as them or powerful as them didn't matter. He had determination. He had enough determination and strength of character. He's like, just because you have power, I have my homestead, I have all the stuff I've worked for. How did you earn your stuff? It's like he had that pride of a common working man that is well earned and well deserved and everything. And what I was going to say was, in the first episode, I believe, what really summed it up for me, they did a good job in the scene where Obi-Wan's watching them from a distance, and Luke's playing kind of tricks on Owen, getting out of helping him with stuff and going to play, and Owen still hasn't called all of Luke's tricks or whatever, and you can see that Luke doesn't have a care in the world, which means these people are taking care of him.
Yeah.
He considers it all good fun. He hasn't learned the seriousness of anything yet. And meanwhile, you see Owen about to pull his hair out with worry in just a few seconds, you know, which he's probably too worried. But still, the burden, you realize the guy's carried a burden a lot of years. And so is Baruch, you know, that they know more, there's more to the story. And they know that anytime it's not just the world is dangerous enough, you know, this kid could get into, but there's all kinds of other stuff that could happen. And that brought me a new respect for him, that he's really shouldering that burden every minute of being the protector of this kid. And the Star Wars universe was him a great deal, whether we knew it or not. We never do it. We pretty much just ragged on the dude forever. But he did a good job. I mean, when you see the kid having a good time and, you know, shirking work and doing things a kid should do, the parents are doing a decent job, you know, or the guardians are doing a decent job. And the price he paid for that, we just kind of start to figure out from that one little scene. And I wanted to roll this into one of my points, which was my favorite scene from the show, just about, which I did not think it would be. I was not impressed with it in the trailer at all. It was a scene from the trailer where Obi-Wan's watching the Lars and Luke, and the scene where he brings the macro binoculars down, and the performance that Ewan McGregor gives there, it's just very poignant to me. And when I saw it in the preview trailer, it was out of place, it was out of context, and it was with this random dialogue thrown in that just sounded really wrong and hit me wrong. When you put it in the context of the show, though, there's no real dialogue there, I don't think. And the motion that he does is, I don't know how many takes they did, or if he figured this out, or what happened, but when he brings it down and he releases with this one hand, and he reaches out with his right hand as if to grab Luke, as he's bringing his hand down, and he has to kind of uncurl his hand, and there's so much on him in that moment, and you realize that Obi-Wan is really wanting to control that situation. I mean, it's hurting him not to be controlling that situation, because the kid means so much, because that is his best friend's child, and not just that he's potentially going to have some prophecy or be, you know, a hope for the future, although that's part of it. You see this human suffering to reach out to this other person, and he can't. There's a barrier in the way, and the way he acts that moment is so poignant to me, and just so beautiful between these two characters. And the kid has no idea that there's a man out there, basically his uncle, you know, suffering, wanting to connect with him, and can't do it. You know, it's one of my favorite moments.
And following up on that, I loved again how it brings the series kind of full circle, where they parallel things in the final episode that came up in the first episodes, where Owen gives Obi-Wan the opportunity to meet Luke. That was a very moving moment, because Owen initially is confrontational about Obi-Wan coming up. I thought you were going to keep your distance. You know, I thought all this Jedi stuff was over with. And Obi-Wan just tells him that I am going to. And Owen then respects that and sees that this guy needs an emotional connection with this kid that he's given a decade of his life to watch over.
That only happens when he lets go of it.
Yes.
When he lets go of the need to have it. And which is integral to Jedi philosophy, of letting go of the need to have something and the need to control. Control is part of eventually domination, and the illusion is that you can control things. You can't, you know. And so I think by the end of the series, the way that scene at the beginning sets it so well, that he's wanting to put a bubble around Luke to protect him, you know. And at the end, he realizes, it's my job, but there's only so much I can do. That he says at some point, like, let the future take care of itself, or something like that. And that's part of the optimism of, like, how do you endure that burden for so many years? You know, it's much more realistic to look at it that way, as like as the way they resolved it. But anyway.
Yeah, and then in that moment, Ewan falls into the old Obi-Wan with the hello there greeting to Luke. It was just, it brought back the optimism of the character, the confidence of the character from the prequels.
Yeah.
was
You could also
enhancing.
argue that he's afraid of influencing Luke in a bad way, that he'd end
Yeah.
up like Anakin. And by the end, you see that is all gone.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan is at ease, and just himself, with the kid and everything. So regardless of all the other details, that imagery at the beginning, it's all Ewan. It's all Ewan's performance. And the way it sits in that moment is just really, really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. On a smaller, less important note, I will say that, and this is just me, but I know I like to bring up things that just are Star Wars to me, and original stormtroopers. When I see
Yeah.
them in any scene, I'm immediately lifted up, and I almost like think that they could do like a series on stormtroopers, and I would be completely invested. Like show some rookies come in and they're they become stormtroopers and we follow their path into the Empire. I would love that because there's nothing Star Wars to me more than almost than original stormtroopers. So I liked how they utilized them in this show. They weren't quite the bumbling idiots they've been made out to be in most shows, but I don't know. There's something about those that just lift me. Oh, okay, all right, Greedo. Greedo disagrees. He thinks they're still Keystone Cops. Actually,
I don't have
I
to
know
think
the scene
about
you're
it.
talking about,
I don't
but
have to think
we're
about
not
it.
negative today. So
No. It has the comedy. You have to embrace the comedy. They're comedy. That's what they are.
Wow, they are now, unfortunately. But yeah, I would love to see them redeemed. I wish a show would just turn them into badasses like they,
I've always wanted to see a show about a stormtrooper marksman.
yeah.
They ended up having that character with Bill Burr a little bit, but I always want to see a show about a stormtrooper that was known for hitting things.
Yeah.
For being a sharpshooter.
But anyway, just a little side note there. I just love any show that incorporates the original stormtroopers as a regular character. I love that. So let's wrap up talking about the final confrontation.
Oh, wait. I got one more thing
Oh,
before we
okay.
go to that.
Sure.
I know the middle episodes dragged, but there was one addition to Star Wars lore that I enjoyed in the middle episodes when Obi-Wan infiltrated the Inquisitor's fortress and found those force-sensitive people in former Jedi in amber. That's a moment that's still sticking with me. And the last shot of that, the youngling in amber. And I'm just really wondering, I'm glad they didn't explain it. I'm kind of wondering where will it
left
go?
It open. Yeah.
Will it tie into other shows? How is it part of the Emperor's cloning plan, or what is going on? Does Darth Vader even know about that place? Because Darth Vader was tasked, I thought, with destroying the Jedi. What's going on there? Are the Inquisitors playing a different game, or is Darth Vader playing a different game? And so that just brought in some intriguing questions for me, and it was a surprising moment that stuck with me that I wondered if they're going to revisit in later series.
If I was an Inquisitor, I wouldn't be making any long-term plans.
No.
Or be involved in any long-term conspiracy.
No.
You ain't gonna be around to see it.
No. And that one, the Grand Inquisitor who's stabbed through the gut, then returns and then mounts off to Darth Vader on the bridge of his own Star Destroyer. It's just
brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah, great move. That is a recipe for longevity.
It's the positivity.
But this was
that was a great moment.
People were still mouthing off to Vader, so
right.
For whatever reason, like why?
I just think the Grand Inquisitor only had one mode, sarcasm. Just that's all he could speak in, sarcasm. So he's just known for that. That
dude ended up force choked, I know, at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure. Choked. Well, I agree with you on the addition to the lore. I think that's something that they'll explain. I don't think they do any of this stuff without a reason. They're not just going to randomly put a scene like that in there and then never revisit it. I have a feeling we'll get to that at some point, whether it's with Obi-Wan Kenobi if they do further seasons, or if it shows up again in another show where they allude back to it. Because obviously, I know the Mandoverse takes place, 30 years later or something like that, or 25 years later, but they may allude to it. I
These
just think it's all
imperial
part of the,
projects that take 30 years to develop.
but I just think it's all it's all part of that cloning
We
plan by
stand here
Palpatine.
amongst my achievement, mine that took 25 years.
Death Star take like 50 years.
Do you realize I was in high school when I started this shit?
2 or 3 of them they were working on for 50 years.
Exactly.
Anybody else got anything else? Are we doing the final battle?
Yeah, let's go for the final.
Can I say one
episodes.
my last point before that?
Of course.
Because it's kind of not that. One thing I kind of liked, I'm not 100%, but it definitely shocked me a little bit, and was that I just put dared to go youngling, which sounds even
Dared
funny,
what?
but
Yes,
dared to go youngling.
Oh yeah.
When I realized they
Yeah.
were going to tell the story of massacred younglings and the survivors,
Mhm.
I thought that was very, very interesting and dangerous, and a lot of things. They at least didn't totally, destroy that storyline or make it an embarrassment to address it. Though it was an interesting part of, something we've always talked about from Revenge of the Sith and from Attack of the Clones as well. That part of Anakin, I never thought anybody ever address it again, really. And to not just address it, but directly address it was interesting. I give them kudos for the attempt.
and it gave emotional gravity to the whole show because it also tied into the whole Jedi process of taking children from their parents, and we see that referenced in Obi-Wan's regret at the beginning. And then we've got
what happens when the system fails that takes these kids away? Like they've always succeeded in the past, it's been worth it. But what happens when it turns bad, when there's bad actors in there that are corrupting it, and then the whole thing falls apart? Who's to blame?
Yeah, it added emotional gravity to all the characters, and I think that kind of leads into one more thing before we get to the final confrontation between Vader and Obi-Wan. The flashback to Attack of the Clowns or whatever it was, the flashback of Anakin and Obi-Wan dueling. And the flashbacks of Anakin killing the younglings. This is another case where the TV shows are using flashbacks to great effect, where we don't get flashbacks in the movies. The TV shows have more time to expand on things like that. And so we got a beautiful flashback to the Attack of the Clones era or whatever, or what was it, or Phantom Menace era.
Well, it was in between the two. It was probably right before Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, and that battle between the two of them, and what really struck me was that was Vader's flashback. It wasn't Obi-Wan's flashback.
Yeah, it was
we
Anakin
were getting
inside
the head of Darth Vader, which is
Yep.
something we really haven't done before, except all we have is his dialogue and the look on the mask, the way the mask has been shot in the movies to give us a sense of something going on behind the mask.
Right.
And here we're actually seeing what his thoughts are and how it ties into the relationship with Obi-Wan and to the failure of that relationship, to the evolution of Anakin's character into Darth Vader. It was really well done, I thought. And the decision not to de-age the actors too was a good
I thought that was an
decision.
interesting call as well.
Yeah,
I
they're
thought they
right
were
at the right age where they could still get away with it. We knew, they're older. We see they've got wrinkles and things, but it was still convincing.
Yeah, I agree.
It was well written to have a battle between them that revealed who they were. I think that was one of the things that Greedo talked about when we were first watching it, is that Star Wars lightsaber duels are about character rather than just choreography, dueling choreography. And that really got at the heart of what was the difference between those characters that showed us how they went the two different paths that they went.
Right.
So that was a real highlight, all of those, that extended flashback throughout that, next to the last episode? I can't remember
next to
what
the last episode, episode 5. Yep. Yeah, that was really well done. So that'll lead us into the final confrontation between Luke and Obi-Wan, or Luke, Vader and Obi-Wan.
Luke, kick Obi-Wan's ass.
Exactly.
Hello, and there's this
You
hobo.
lied on
There's this
him.
hobo
This
here.
hobo trying to come on our property. I swear, if they called him an old man one more time,
Oh
it's
my
gonna
goodness,
lose my
yeah.
Oh
mind.
man, Ian McGregor.
The old man.
Laughable.
But yeah, that was a really intense duel, and I think kind of what you touched on a second ago, Gundark, with having an emotional component to a lightsaber duel. That's what sets it apart from just choreography, and that's
Yeah.
what gives it gravitas, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, that's what really makes it the difference between just, oh, that just looks cool with all the moves they're doing, versus
Yeah.
this actually means something, So
Otherwise,
I
it's just skill,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
which is
it's
great to watch.
impressive in
but
its own right, but
yeah,
for different reasons. Yep.
yeah. There has to be some motivation behind this
Yeah.
clash for power or whatever.
Mhm.
For people to go at each other, a lightsaber cuts through anything, but it's basically a sword.
Yeah.
And for people to go at each other with edged weapons,
Mhm.
they have to have some motivation because it's a very, very brutal, hard thing to risk and to fight and to be willing to
Mhm.
inflict on another person.
Exactly.
And even most of the prequels we see, they hardly ever use their sabers against living creatures. It's usually against inanimate objects and and droids and things like that.
Mhm.
Which kind of comes into question later about whether droids are conscious or not. But so yeah, so there has to be a intense hate there when you break it down to really want to go at someone and maul them with something that inflicts so much pain and everything like that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I wanted to say that the only thing I had left on my list was everything involving Hayden. I thought was great,
Yeah.
Mhm.
which includes the last bit and everything. I don't know that the only thing I would point out about the last confrontation that I thought was brilliant was Hayden and Anakin and Vader's delivery of the line, "I was not your failure. You didn't kill Anakin. I did."
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
That was great.
that was
And
phenomenal. Yeah, I'm glad they actually went that far and admitted that.
whoever wrote that line, I wish they'd shut up for the rest of the show.
Right.
To write the rest, but that line was so great.
Mhm.
And I can only imagine what they went through trying to pick what Vader was going to say when he's unmasked like that.
Mhm.
And they picked something that I never expected. I just didn't expect that. And it was more than just a retcon. It felt right. But it effectively and totally retconned Obi-Wan into a new light to where you don't really blame him anymore for what he told Luke, although he
Mhm.
was wrong, I think, ultimately, to do it that way. But
Yeah.
it really lends credence to the whole certain point of view thing, and
And it had
it's very
emotional
convincing. It
it
was
had
very
emotional
convincing.
complexity to it too,
Mhm.
especially with Hayden's performance and the way it was shot. I was looking at a breakdown of that scene on YouTube that some commentator put up. He talked about the use of the colors of the lightsabers, blue and red, changing all throughout the close-ups of that scene, and the moments whenever Anakin is speaking in the blue sheen of Obi-Wan's sabers being reflected on the open side of his face.
Mhm.
At the moments where he's seems like he's absolving Obi-Wan, I am not your failure. Oh,
And then it
you didn't
turns
kill
red.
me, and then it turns to red, and that smirk comes on, like,
Mhm.
and it's almost like there's still the battle within
Like there's
him. You
still
can
this
see it.
conflict. Yep.
Yes, the
Mhm.
conflict that Luke later latches onto to pull him back from the dark side is the conflict between that need to absolve someone who was his teacher, his mentor, his brother, someone he loved and
Mhm.
still loves. I think he couldn't kill him in those first episodes. There's
Right.
too deep a connection between them, and to get at that emotional complexity within just a few lines, and the way they're delivered by the actor and the way it's photographed with the color design, I thought was just brilliant. And it like you said, Greedo, it brought all of Obi-Wan's stories to Luke into a new context. It explained a lot more. It kind of absolved Obi-Wan in our minds too,
Yeah.
I think.
Right.
And the idea, I think I said this whenever we did our reaction video to this episode, is that what shocked me about that scene is that it was Vader absolving Obi-Wan. I thought Obi-Wan would get over his guilt in a different way, but I was just really surprised that they went that route, that Vader just took the responsibility as I did
Yeah,
what I did.
that is pretty.
You didn't have really anything to do
I
with
was
it.
very
It's
surprised by
really
that.
rare too that they just pick the perfect line
Mhm.
for something like that. And I really felt like there's so many things he could have said. There's so many things and it could have had an emotional impact and it could have gone this way or that way. But that line just hit right and accomplished so much in one stroke,
Mhm.
yeah, it was really, really well done. I don't know how you come across that and then rehearse it and just, decide between all the things he possibly could say that this is what he's going to say, but incredibly great line.
Yeah.
At the time I was floored when I saw it. I was like, wow. It took a minute. It instantly hit me, and then it took a minute to really sink in. I was like, wow, they just, kind of retcon the whole thing, and it works. It actually fits really well. So,
What about the duel itself between them?
I enjoyed it. I mean, it was
I thought it was all right.
it was brutal. It was harsh. I loved the cinematic aspects of it. The shot up at Obi-Wan when he raises up the boulders behind him and sends them towards Vader, and Vader buries Obi-Wan alive, and just the back and forth of it. I thought it was well done.
I love even the cinematography at the very beginning when they first have the standoff where they both arrive and Vader is shot against a blank background in the sky just with this like half moon, and Obi-Wan is on the other
That was
side of
really
the
good,
frame with
yeah.
all those rocks, and so the opposition is really set up.
Mhm.
And the shots that recall gunslingers when they're facing off against each
Oh,
other
yeah,
with their
absolutely.
lightsabers by their side,
Mhm.
giving a tribute to Star Wars foundation in the Western. And then the duel itself, like you said, I wasn't prepared for how brutal it would be. And
Yeah.
Darth Vader at some points really getting his ass kicked by Obi-Wan. I mean, the cape going down when the cape was set afire.
Yeah.
And Vader slammed against the rocks.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Oh, you really felt Obi-Wan's power coming back. And like you said, the wonderful shot where he's raising the rocks into the air to use them as missiles, because we've seen Vader do this trick in the movies, and now we're seeing that being used against him. And also, there's something about Vader seems alone in that sequence. Obi-Wan seems like he's pulling on the power of something greater beyond himself, and
Right,
Vader seems
absolutely.
so
Yeah, I agree
alone.
with that.
And the fact of him calling upon the landscape to fight Vader, and
Mhm.
then after being buried in the landscape, calling upon the memories of the children that he's trying to protect,
Yeah.
to fight Vader. I felt like Obi-Wan is finding his communion with things outside himself and with the Force
Mhm.
throughout that whole battle sequence, whereas Vader is becoming more and more alone, ending with him screaming out Obi-Wan when he's been abandoned again at the end of the sequence.
Right.
So what a wonderful fight thing. When we were
Yeah.
watching it too, I was watching it with my husband, second watch, and he had not seen it before. And he's not an uber Star Wars fan, but he's a pretty big fan just because of bleed over from my fandom,
Yeah.
because he's had so many years of enabling my fandom, and
Yeah.
so he can quote Star Wars with about the best of them.
Mhm.
And I was just astounded. I was sitting next to him. He was so involved in
Oh,
the
nice.
fight. And he just stopped. He said, "This is the best lightsaber duel in all of Star Wars." And I'm
Wow.
like, "Oh my God, okay." I'm not sure I agree with you, but maybe it is close to that.
I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's close. Yeah, it's because of the weight of the situation, the combatants involved, and just the fact that they're literally putting a period on everything,
Yeah.
at that point. And I'm glad they went that route the way they did. I'm glad the fight showed the skill levels that it showed. And what I mean by that is they didn't try to recreate the Revenge of the Sith fight,
Yeah.
because neither of them are in that condition anymore.
Yeah.
Anakin can't move like that anymore. Obi-Wan can't move like that anymore. So I'm glad they didn't try to overdo it and get way too fancy with it. So I thought that they did a really good balance between. It was a good balance, I thought, between the Revenge of the Sith and the one we see in the original Star Wars. I thought it was
Yeah.
kind of a good, we're 10 years in between, and it was a good fit for that time period,
Yeah.
for their skill levels and their health and their age and all that. So I thought,
And
but yeah,
my husband also pointed out at the end of it, he just loved seeing Obi-Wan come back. He
Mhm.
loves seeing Obi-Wan regaining his skills, his power, and really fighting against Vader. And he said, Vader never really defeated Obi-Wan. He never
Mhm.
really defeated Obi-Wan, even in that earlier scene where he wiped the floor with him, set him on fire and such.
yeah.
He was gonna come back from that,
Mhm.
And when he kills Obi-Wan in A New Hope, that's solely because Obi-Wan allowed it to happen.
Mhm.
So it was a moment where his power felt right, that he
Mhm.
had the power back again, that you felt the strength, the confidence of that character returning. You felt the importance of his mission. You felt
Right.
the difference between him and the Padawan who had gone the wrong way,
Mhm.
his former Padawan, and that wasn't because of Obi-Wan's doing. That was because of the choices that Anakin made.
Right.
And so it really strengthened the Obi-Wan character, I think, to end with the battle. But what do you make of Obi-Wan walking away at the end? I know this has sparked a lot of conversation.
A lot of
that
controversy
Obi-Wan
about
doesn't kill him.
right. I think that my personal think is the reason I'm thinking that Obi-Wan walked away because he still has enough of an emotional attachment to the character, even though he does say the word, then, my friend is truly dead, that he can't bring himself to physically kill him.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I can see the controversy, because I know my initial thought was like, wait a minute, you've got Vader at your fingertips, you can kill him. I think I even made the the comparison, like, what if somebody had, in 1932, the year before Hitler takes power, a chance to kill
Yeah.
Hitler? It's like, do you not take it? But but yeah, I think that he made the decision that was most accurate to his character,
I
if that
think
makes
so
any
too.
sense.
I
Yeah.
think so too.
Mhm.
Because I just don't think at that point he could kill this person, even though his friend was dead. It
Mhm.
wasn't his part, it seemed, to kill
Yeah.
him at that point. It
Right.
was to leave what he said, the future will take care of itself at the end of that episode. It was an important moment to walk away
Mhm.
and let that take care of itself. It would almost have been a violation of his moral and emotional growth, it seems like, for
I
him
agree.
to
Yeah.
kill him, especially when he was unarmed, when he had lost his saber and he was hurt and everything. I just don't
Mhm.
think he could do that.
Yeah.
So I think it was the right choice.
Mhm. I
Um,
do too.
it would have, of course, the choice that had to be made in some way. We
Mhm.
can't allow him to. It has to be some explanation for Vader still alive, at the end of that. But I think the deliberate choice, letting Obi-Wan deliberately walk away, was the right choice.
Mhm.
And it was almost like it was a choice that was made for better reasons than the choice he made at the end of Revenge of the Sith. The Revenge of the Sith choice has always bothered me. It was almost like it was very cruel on Obi-Wan's part. It was
Mhm.
almost like it was a vengeance act to walk away and leave Anakin
Leaving
burning to
suffering.
death.
Yeah.
And at this point, it was almost like this is absolved. This is
Mhm.
over with, and
Right.
it's time to go our separate ways.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah.
Yeah. All right. So on that note, we'll wrap up. The drill: hit like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, the bell icon for notifications, and we'll be back. See you next time. We almost made it through the whole show without talking about Inquisitors.
I had meant to mention that
Hey, what's going on? What is it?
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
This isn't going to be easy.
Good luck.
You must be cautious.
Sing your love. Sing your love. Come on, sing your love. Singing your love. Your love. Singing your love. At the Cantina Club.
Mhm.
Oh,
Is there any more Dagobah swamp disasters over there at dark?
no. No, not yet.
It's strong in the whoa, whoa.
They didn't have tornadoes on Dagobah, as far as I know. Just a lot of rain.
They had frognadoes.
Frognadoes.